Hello, hello. Welcome to Connecting the Community with Chris. We have an exciting podcast today with a very special guest, Kristin Rossi, as the CEO of Michigan's Parkinson's Foundation. Miss Rossi is an expert at all aspects of caring for a loved one with Parkinson's disease. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
So, Kristen and the team over at Michigan Parkinson's Foundation are focused on making sure that no one with Parkinson's disease feels isolated or feel alone. And this is so important. They do this by focusing on four main pillars that are offered. And so, this exercise can be also with 6 consistent classes offered each week. Education through a virtual and also in person opportunities all year, and socialization in the form of support groups and having events in person as well. Now, respite care assistance is also offered for family members. Now, Miss Rossi, tell us a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, like you said, I'm the CEO of the Michigan Parkinson Foundation. I took over last April, and prior to that, I worked at the Alzheimer's Association of Greater Michigan for many years. So it was a really good bridge into what I'm doing now, staying with kind of the neurological side of things, but also how to help families who are going through some struggling times with disease-related issues.
Which is so important. I know a lot of family members are, especially with COVID, are struggling with we call activities of daily living
Yeah.
when their loved ones have a disease. And this is what we really want to highlight today. And what is actually Parkinson's disease?
So Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder affecting the dopamine center of the brain. So it's denoted by a lack of dopamine in the brain, which affects mostly movement. Mostly what people think of when they think of Parkinson's disease is usually a tremor. They think of the motor symptoms, but not all of those are true for everyone. Not everyone with Parkinson's has a tremor, but you usually do see movement issues, gait instability, issues with flexibility, rigidity, stiffness, and for many people, the tremor is there. But along with this disease also comes a whole slew of non-motor symptoms as well that you kind of have to pay attention to, depression and anxiety being chief among them.
And I know that the forefront of a lot of family members are facing now too is just the quality of life that diminishes with all these conditions that happen. I know some have more or less, but
Mhm.
what type of quality of life is affected?
Yeah, well, when you're talking about movement, so much is affected. And when you're talking about depression and anxiety and some of the more emotional aspects of this disease, it can affect your day to day very much. Our job is to make sure that people with Parkinson's and their families are living an optimal quality of life every day. So we do this through working with the community to get them the resources they need to make this disease manageable, putting them in touch with the knowledge, the medical community, the resources that can help them live that life, but also get them in touch with exercise programs, which has been proven to help people with Parkinson's. So that's part of what we offer. I know that you said that right at the beginning, but we have exercise classes 6 days a week via Zoom. And they're all taught by people specializing in Parkinson's, either physical therapists specializing in Parkinson's or yoga therapy specializing in Parkinson's.
So it sounds like the forefront is offering resources, but preventative techniques and tips to help the
Yeah.
community if you are caring for your loved one aging in place. And so there are types of therapy that also help, right? And then also the progression of the disease as things happen. Not everyone can really, measure that.
Hmm.
So what type of therapies are you guys,
Yeah.
recommending?
Yeah, so there's no known, cure for the disease or way to full out prevent the disease, but a lot more research is being done to show that exercise can really slow the progression of the disease. And that's through aerobic exercise, strength training, flexibility training, making sure that your body is moving and you're staving off those effects. And then in turn, it also helps with mood and it also helps with, getting some of those natural endorphins in so that you can create that optimal quality of life.
I think that, that's something that a lot of family members face is that, again, we always say that when your loved one is actually diagnosed with it, that's probably
Hmm.
the first time when you actually should have support. Don't wait for some things to progress. it's good to get out there and talk to individuals, and so that way you can know what happens in 5 to 10 years,
Mhm.
so you could be prepared.
Yeah, yeah,
Now the resources that are available, I know that you guys have a robust website, and you guys are
yeah.
always constantly updating it to making sure that it's important
Mhm.
to the viewers. So what's on the website that's offered?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I'll say that we're doing a complete rebrand. So it's about to look all different, and we're doing a website redesign as well. So our website is about to look a lot different, but it's really following those 4 pillars. And I'm just going to go back to those because that's really the skeleton, the bones of what we do. So the first is that socialization piece. We want to make sure, as you said in the beginning, that nobody with Parkinson's or their family members truly feel isolated. So one big offering we have is our support groups. We offer 76 support groups throughout the state, and our state has 83 counties. So that's almost, one for every county. So that's a great way to keep in
It's
touch
impressive.
and yeah, and stay connected to people. We also have community action committees that we pull together in different areas, largely based on where we have walks. So Detroit, Lansing, Grand Rapids, Traverse City, where we just have a great showing of people who come together and try to do something with the members of the community for the betterment of the entire Parkinson's community throughout the state. So that's kind of the socialization piece. Exercise, I know I touched on that a lot, but I really can't say enough about how that helps to
Your wellness
preserve,
is a
yes,
huge factor.
preserve cognition and maintain your ability to do those activities of daily living that you need to do throughout time. So exercise cannot be overstated, but that's a big pillar, big thing that we do. We also have education programs. So every third Tuesday of the month, we have a virtual education series. We also have in-person education topics that we bring people to in our office. We had one on neuroplasticity and cognition in the fall that was really well attended because people want to know, how do I preserve my cognition? How do I make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make sure I'm using my brain as much as I can while I
Yeah.
exercise, while I do other activities. And then we also have a symposium that we do that's both for the medical community, and we provide CMEs and CEUs for that, and then also for the patient community. So that's going to be May 13th this year in Novi. So we have lots in terms of education that we do throughout the year. I'm not even like touching the top of what we do there, but
Yeah.
more is on our website.
Mhm.
And then finally, we have respite care assistance. So that's often for people in the later stages
Yeah,
when
please explain what respite
absolutely.
means,
Oh
because the
yeah.
public sometimes doesn't know, and that's how we both know because we're in the care world. But
Yes.
respite care is so valuable.
That's a great point. So respite care is basically relief for the person who's predominantly doing the caregiving. So that can come in the form of helping the person with the disease with their activities of daily living, dressing, toileting, showering, things like that. Or it can come in the form of light housework, providing company for someone. So it's really to give that relief to the caregivers. And we offer $2,000 per family per year in respite care assistance.
Wonderful.
And that can be through a home health agency, that can be through a out of home facility,
Mhm.
or it can be through a family caregiver, a family or friend caregiver at this point as well.
Now, I know that we're all trying to juggle how to manage Parkinson's disease, with the respite care, taking a break, how to get support, and all that. It all adds up.
Yeah.
And so, what can you do to manage Parkinson's disease in your eyes now?
I would say, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but the exercise is a huge piece. The other thing that I tell people, the first thing when they call is, do you have a movement disorder specialist? So you kind of have to create your own care team. And the first person that should be kind of at the top of that is a movement disorder specialist, someone who is trained, has done further training to know all of the ins and outs of Parkinson's disease and really knows what treatments are on the forefront, both from a pharmacological standpoint, but also from, a therapeutic standpoint. And that person often can connect you also with a speech therapist, a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, all the people you kind of need on your team to have that optimal quality of life.
Yeah, and so the support groups are obviously available, and they help with gauging what is affected, with the disease and family members being involved with that. So, what when diving into the support groups, because I know family members sometimes they feel alone. I can see with being in home care, a lot of family members come to us when they had up to here being the caregiver and they get
Absolutely.
burnt out.
Yeah.
And so let's dive into actually what actually does a support group look like in
Yeah.
working with your organization.
Well, and it's a little bit different in every community, but I think some people hear support group and they think, okay, I'll sit in a circle and we'll talk about our feelings. And that does happen to a
They think
certain
of like what
extent.
they see on the movies,
Right, right.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is that many of our support groups bring in guest speakers that can be doctors from their community, movement disorder specialists that are coming to talk about, non-motor symptoms and how they can be managed. It can be the local rock steady boxing coach to come in and show people a couple techniques that they can use or tell more about their class. It could be, someone to talk about vision problems. It could be any number of things. The
Mhm.
support group facilitators get a guest speaker list from us, and oftentimes they're getting guests to come in and talk to the group about things that are affecting the entire group. The other thing that happens at a lot of support groups, which I think is really neat, is a couple times a year they'll break up into two groups: the person with Parkinson's dealing with the condition, and the caregiver.
Mm.
And it'll allow those two groups to talk uniquely about what's going on in their lives.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love hearing that, because the caretaker needs to have self-care too,
Oh,
and take care of
absolutely.
themselves in order to care for their parents.
Absolutely.
I'm a big believer in that because it's not easy to be able to do that 24/7.
Yeah.
So, if you come back and regroup and take care of your loved one, it's good for them too because then they're
Oh,
not
yeah.
getting stressed that you're stressed,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Depression and anxiety is very prevalent among caregivers as well, and you can see why. It's a really tough job.
It is, yeah, it is, and so it's good to prepare yourself mentally just as
Hmm.
much as physically as well.
Absolutely.
Now, there are training modules on your website,
Yeah.
so that's another thing that us resource that you guys offer. What are the videos intended for, and how can they help?
So the videos are really intended for assisted living facilities, home health aides, so that they can get trained in everything related to Parkinson's disease. So that's, Parkinson's 101, that gets into speech and swallowing, the dining room experience, and then even at the end, delusions and hallucinations and things
Hallucinations,
like that. Yeah, which are very real parts of this disease in certain stages.
freezing, and
Absolutely. And how to work with people the best that you can.
Mhm.
So the idea is really to make sure that the aide that's working with the person with Parkinson's is fully prepared to handle their needs in the moment. We've also put that on our YouTube channel where we have lots of on-demand videos as well. That can be found in the top right corner of our website. It's right there for everybody, because we want to make sure that family caregivers can use these too.
and that's like my next question. Really, is
Yeah.
what do you offer to the caregiver? What type of resources?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the videos, the support group is also with the actual person who has the disease.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of our programs throughout the year are targeted to caregivers. Part of what we're going to be doing at the symposium is targeted to caregivers as well. But really, that respite care assistance is what we find helps caregivers most. It's not only the financial assistance, but it's the connection that we make with the caregiver right at the beginning of that phone call and kind of following their journey
Mhm.
through how their loved one's doing.
Not everyone could pay for caregiving
Oh,
services.
yeah.
In Michigan, it's not covered 100% unless they have a certain specific type of insurance,
Yeah.
like long-term care insurance, for example. But so they have to dive into learning how to be a good caregiver if they're going to be with them till end of life. And so I think it's so much needed. Now, I know that there's fundraisers that are really valuable in the community. Now,
Yeah.
this is just another thing that we um, would would want the community to know about because it's like we can't grow unless we're together. We grow together as
Absolutely.
a community, and that's kind of what you and I, our mission is that not just provide preventative therapy, but also to give education out and also come together and let's talk about it and then let's come up with a plan.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give somebody at this day who has just their loved ones is diagnosed with Parkinson's disease? What would you give advice to that family member right now?
I'd say to call us because we have tons of programs and tons of information. You mentioned, our fundraising events as well
Mhm.
and growing as a community. And that's how I really see our walks. We do 4 walks throughout the state every year, and we're trying to grow that program as well. But I call those our biggest support groups because you look out in Metro Detroit, you see 500 to 600 people who are dealing with the same things that you're dealing with,
Mhm.
and you can lean on each other a little bit more. You can
Yeah.
trade resources a little bit more. And it's really all for the benefit of our programs and services of getting out into the Parkinson's
a-
community
and you're
more.
not alone. Like I said, a lot of family members deal with depression, and they feel like that they're the only. You could be, in your mid 20s, and your loved ones have Parkinson's, and you're the caretaker, and now
Oh,
you're not
yeah.
going out with your friends, and
Oh,
could,
yeah.
possibly not go to the college that you want to go to because you're
Yeah.
caring for your parents. So there's a lot of situational things. But when you do go into the walks, I've been
Yeah.
to plenty of them myself, and you just feel like that. You know what? It's a big world. There's a lot of people out there that
Yeah.
are dealing with the same thing, and it's maybe meet your best friend there,
Yeah.
somebody that could
Yeah.
call and talk to you about the situation you're in.
Absolutely. We always say we want people to feel like they're wrapped up in a big MPF hug, a big Michigan Parkinson Foundation hug, because that's the feeling that we create at these events. We bring everyone together. We have kind of a unifying piece of it, and kind of like you can rely on us, you can rely on your neighbor. We can come together as a community. But the worst thing you can do is be isolated or stay in the shadows. We're trying to bring this disease out of darkness. We're trying to bring the stigma out of it
Mhm.
so we can deal with it up front, and we can get people the resources that they need because this disease can be well managed if you have the right people in your corner, if you have the right care team.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This
What?
is wonderful.
Oh yes, we'll see. Well, I'm sure we'll have another podcast together. What's the best way for someone to reach out?
I would say visit our website first, parkinsonsmi.org, and we've got our number at the top. We've got our on demand library there. We have everything that you could need on our website, but just be aware it will be changing. It'll be the same great information, but just in a different style coming soon.
Great. Well, it was an honor to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris.